Mangwana ni Mwalelepo Fukenjani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. The news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. How are you, Diana?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic.
It's a beautiful Thursday.
Yes, it is indeed. Yes, it is indeed.
Of the 4-day work week this week.
Yes, very short week. We deserve it. But
we definitely do. We definitely do. Now let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Gabon takes a historic step towards democratic renewal. Kenyan doctors reject government's offer to end strike, and at least 10 dead, hundreds injured as Taiwan hit by strong earthquake. We'll also be crossing over to Zimbabwe a little later on in the show to talk to talent Gore as she updates us on all the news making headlines at that side. But for now, we'll take a quick ad break and get into our top stories when we return.
Hello, Namapia. Ons is very kus en ons is lus.
By the Easter shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Please, today you make sure that we are fed.
Sorry, exactly.
Let's get into our top stories on Africa. Good morning. In a monumental vote marking a significant shift in Gabonese politics, the nation has embarked on a national dialogue aimed at revitalizing its democratic institutions after 54 years under the Bongo dynasty. Led by President Felix Tshisekedi, the dialogue signifies a crucial step towards fostering hope for a brighter future in the country. The initiative, spearheaded by Archbishop Jean-Patrick Ibaba and attended by over 4,000 citizens at the Libreville Sports Palace, symbolizes a collective effort to chart a new course for Gabon. Amidst the gathering, the sentiment of unity and determination to speak with one voice resonated strongly among attendees. Central to the dialogue is the aspiration to create a more just, fraternal and prosperous Gabon, as articulated by Archbishop Ibaba.
Now, Kenyan public hospital doctors rejected a government offer aimed at ending a weeks-long strike that has severely disrupted health services, their union chairman said late on Tuesday. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, which represents more than 7,000 members, went on strike on March the 15th to demand payment of their salary arrears and the immediate hiring of trainee doctors, among other grievances. The government asked the doctors to end their strike in a statement issued late on Tuesday, saying the salary arrears have been paid and that the trainee doctors would be hired from Thursday this week at a cost of 2.4 billion shillings.
Now, Taiwan has been rocked by its largest earthquake in a quarter century, and the magnitude 7.2 tremor has killed at least 10 people, injured more than 900, and triggered tsunami warnings. The earthquake on Wednesday shook buildings off their foundations and caused landslides in the eastern part of the island. Dozens of buildings in the eastern city of Hualien collapsed. Fire safety officials were quoted by Taiwan media as saying at least 9 people were killed in Hualien County, including 3 hikers and 1 engineering worker struck by falling rocks while on a trail, and at least 934 were injured. Rescue teams were working to free at least 56 people believed to be trapped in rubble or needing rescue, according to the news channel SETN. The National Fire Agency said authorities have lost contact with 50 people in minibuses after the quake downed phone networks.
Now, the president of Botswana has threatened to send 20,000 elephants to Germany in a political dispute. Earlier this year, Germany's Environment Ministry suggested there should be stricter limits on importing hunting trophies. Botswana's President Mokgweetsi Masisi told German media this would only impoverish Botswanans. He said elephant numbers had exploded as a result of conservation efforts and hunting helped keep them in check. Germans should live together with the animals in the way you're trying to tell us to, Mr. Masisi told German newspaper Bild. The country is home to about third of the world's elephant population, more than 130,000. Herds were causing damage to property, eating crops, and trampling residents, he told Bild. Botswana has previously given 8,000 elephants to countries such as Angola and has offered hundreds more to Mozambique as a means of bringing the population down. We would like to offer such a gift to Germany, Mr. Masisi said, adding it was not a joke and he would not take no for an answer.
Interesting. Now, Mozambique's agriculture ministry has banned the import of dog breeds considered to be dangerous. The decision is aimed at combating numerous dog attacks that have been reported all over the southern African country. Dog bites are common in Mozambique. In the first half of last year, around 9,000 people were bitten, a reduction of 21% from 2022. Some of the attacks have ended in serious injuries, amputations, and even death. The ban affects 26 breeds, including pit bulls, Rottweilers, bull terriers, bull mastiffs, German shepherds, and Boerboels. The measure, however, excludes dogs used by public security agencies, private security companies, and disaster and rescue services. Those have been our top stories on Africa. Good morning. After the break, we talk to talent Gore in Zimbabwe. All right, it's time for us to get the latest news stories from Talent Gore in Zimbabwe. Talent Wamkase.
Mamkase Africa.
Tamukai Hedu. Talent, you can dive straight into your stories. We won't be interrupting you.
All right, that's fine. So President Emmerson Mnangagwa yesterday declared drought as a state of disaster, and he said that Zimbabwe needs $2 billion United States dollars in aid to help millions of people who are going hungry. The severe dry spell, which is currently happening in Zimbabwe, is wreaking havoc across Southern Africa in general. And the president said that no Zimbabwean must succumb from hunger. He also said that to that end, I do hereby declare a nationwide state of disaster due to the El Nino-induced drought. Due to poor rains, more than 2.7 million people will not have enough food to put on the table this year. He also said that this season's grain harvest was expected to bring in just over half of the cereals needed to feed the nation, but the El Nino, which is happening in Zimbabwe right now and across Southern Africa, has reduced the chances of Zimbabwe have much grain, and right now we are in a state of disaster. And he has appealed to donors and to everyone who can come in and chip in as we need to put $2 billion to ensure that everyone in Zimbabwe is food secured. You also find out that we didn't receive much rain during the 2023-2024 rainfall season, and right now the El Nino pattern, which emerged in mid-2023, usually increases global temperatures for a year afterwards, and it is currently fueling fires and record heat across the Southern Africa. You also find out that Zimbabwe has become the third country to declare drought as a national disaster after Malawi and Zambia. And
all right, Talent, you can just continue straight along with your stories.
Okay, I'm sorry. And also you find out that right now in Zimbabwe, we have lost 9 1,000 cattle due to drought-related deaths, with over 1.4 million more reported to be at high risk due to the lack of pastures and water. So you find out that this all comes back to the El Nino effects that we're currently facing in Zimbabwe, and we've lost, and people are still losing their cattle because there's no water, there's drought. And you also find out that in Matabeleland province, many farmers, because in Matabeleland, that's where most cattle are kept, that is where most people do their cattle farming, and most farmers are recording and reporting that they are losing hundreds and hundreds of cattle because they do not have water and they do not have pastures. You also find out that due to the lack of water that we're experiencing in Zimbabwe, electricity has become a big challenge because we depend on hydropower. So because we do not have water, we do not receive much rainfall, electricity has become a challenge. So right now, to tell you the truth, we are in some sort of a challenge, a crisis in Zimbabwe when it comes to the El Nino-induced droughts which are currently experiencing in Zimbabwe. And the drought is going to go on for a year. So this is just the beginning, and the president has actually declared a state of a disaster.
That is truly worrying and concerning. But thank you so much, Talent, for giving us an update on the news making headlines in Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
We'll now take a look at the weather predictions just before we get into our economic news.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
In economic news, South African policymakers are in discussions on lowering the central bank's inflation target, its governor said yesterday, adding that a lower target would make the country more competitive and bring the central bank in line with peers. Lesesha Kagyago told Reuters he personally preferred a decision that would lower the target from its current range of between 3% and 6% before we get to 2025, but that teams from the South African Reserve Bank and the National Treasury were still identifying the appropriate range and risks associated with it. Our teams are in conversation now, Kagyago said in an interview. The teams will advise the governor and the finance minister and say, okay, this is the appropriate target and this is the appropriate timeline within which we have to achieve the target. South Africa introduced its inflation targeting framework in 2000 and had planned to lower the target to 3% and 5% and then 2% to 4%. But the target never lowered, something Kagyago views as a big mistake and has been vocal about for years. He said the current band was too wide and served to anchor inflation expectations higher than the bank would like. Regarding the general elections in May, he said there was huge uncertainty about the outcome, which was keeping the country's risk premium elevated, referring to the additional return investors demand to compensate them for local risks. Now Kanyago, whose term as SARB governor was extended for another 5 years last month, said President Cyril Ramaphosa had tried to mitigate some of the uncertainty surrounding South Africa by ensuring stability in the leadership of key institutions like the Revenue Service and Central Bank.
Now, Zambia is in talks to restructure $3.3 billion of commercial debt after reaching a deal with overseas holders of its sovereign bonds last week, an official said on Wednesday, as the country seeks to emerge from a 3-year default. We have already started negotiations, and with some, we're almost reaching there, Secretary to the Treasury Felix Nkulukusa said at a public meeting, referring to private creditors other than bondholders. The $3.3 billion is the money that we have to continue engaging, and we're engaging in good faith, he said. Zambia reached a deal in principle with private commercial bondholders, mainly Western asset managers, to rework about $3 billion in international bonds on March 25th, bringing it closer to finishing a complex process after multiple delays. The copper-producing country, which is dealing with a devastating drought, now needs to negotiate restructuring agreements with its other commercial creditors, having also reached a deal with bilateral creditors in June of 2023. The remaining commercial lenders include the Chinese state-owned China Development Bank and Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, the African Export-Import Bank, a regional trade finance provider, and Western banks such as Standard Chartered. Zambia's external debt was $18.3 billion at the end of 2022, according to the most recent International Monetary Fund report on the country. About $13.4 billion of debt is being restructured, Nkulukusa said.
All right, those have been our economic news stories. Let's head over to the indicators just before we head to the sport. We are all seeking connection to each other, to the world, to the spaces we exist in.
Is het van Seidel wat hem kom uitrol hier van die posisie.
Seems like poor sportsmanship right now from the lads.
You might be physically ready, your body is ready, but mentally.
He has another chance and it is a goal from Vindo Kahana.
Op my sy sê wie hy is er aan neertrek en hy bal het my grond gevat. Ja, hy het grond gevat en is
but just enough next.
Running that mountain up. Okay, so we will be doing this for the mountain climber. More advanced, slightly advanced.
So is jou trolley reg? Want
I love it. I love it. So then
Kickstart our countdown at number 5 with this one.
Op Netwerk TV se Klets Kompas gesels ons nuus van 'n Maandag tot Donderdag. Ons kyk ook na die weer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail, and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy. And this is the spirit of NTV. All right, before we swing over to Ari, let's have a look at how the Premier League games transpired last night. It was Burnley sharing the spoils with Wolves with a 1-1 draw at Burnley. Bournemouth had a home win against Crystal Palace 1-0. West Ham United and Tottenham drew 1-1. Brentford and Brighton could not manage to find the net. That was a 0-0 game at Brentford. Now, Arsenal got the best of Luton Town and going to the top of the table with that 2-0 win. Manchester City still sitting on third, just behind Liverpool, after beating Aston Villa 4-1. Let's swing over to Ari Hochad.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with soccer news first. It's English Premier League, 5 games played on Tuesday, and it was 2 games that ended in a win and 3 in a draw. The games that ended in a win was Nottingham Forest that beat Fulham by 3-1, and Bournemouth, they beat Crystal Palace 1-0. Then big games was played. Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham played to a 1-1 draw, and then Newcastle and Everton also 1-1 draw, and Burnley and Wolverhampton also the same score, 1-1. So it is significant in the race for the top 8, because at the moment it is West Ham on in 7th position on 45 league points, followed by Newcastle in 8th position on 44, and then Brighton and Wolverhampton on 42 each. So it's a very close 9 and 10 there, Brighton and Wolverhampton. That is the English Premier League. On to tennis news, and it is the Charleston Open that's being played, women's WTA tennis. It's being played on clay, and the number 1 seed from America, Jessica Pegula, a tough first round game for her. She beat Anna Anaznova by 3-6, 6-4 and 7-6. And then also number 3 seed, Maria Sakkari, she safely through, beating Victoria Tomova by 6-3 and 6-3. The winner of the previous week tournament, that was the Miami Open, that's Diane Collins. She had a good start on clay. Obviously, the Miami Open was played on hard surface, and she beat Paula Badoza of Spain by 6-1 and 6-4. And then to close off today's international sports news, it is cricket news from the Indian Premier League. It's continuing. It's a tournament with lots of games, and the latest game, the Super Giants beat the Royal Challengers Bangalore by 28 runs. A good result there for the Super Giants. It is Quinton de Kock of South Africa that scored runs for the Super Giants. What happened in the game was the Super Giants 181 for the loss of 5 wickets, and Quinton de Kock scoring 81 runs from just 56 deliveries. The Royal Challengers Bangalore, they've got a great batting lineup. Opening pair is Virat Kohli and Faf du Plessis, and then Glenn Maxwell of Australia also playing in that team. But it was Virat Kohli out for 22, Faf du Plessis out for 19, and Glenn Maxwell out for a duck, and they only scored 153 runs in response to the 181 for 5 of the Super Giants. So it is the Royal Challengers Bangalore, a difficult season for them so far. They're in 9th position out of the 10 teams, and they've also played 4 games. The Super Giants up to 4th position, and they've played 3 games so far. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
You're still with Africa. Good morning for those of you that are just joining us. Let's take a look at the highlights. Gabon takes historic step towards democratic renewal. At least 10 dead, hundreds injured as Taiwan hit by strong earthquake. And South African policymakers in talks on lowering inflation target. This is according to Khanyago.
DSTV2 at 5, GoTV 25, 1up2.com is where you can find us. I'd like to wish my father a very happy birthday. And to you, the Africa Good Morning viewers, Swera Jokanaka.